everybody. Welcome to Trading the Close. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here at VerifiedInvesting.com. Today was a day where we kind of came in off of some negative news yesterday. That ASML, the semiconductor earnings, really shocked the markets, took down names like NVIDIA, AMD, Taiwan Semi yesterday. And today was a day where we kind of limped all day long, meaning that the markets are a net positive, but not up much. And the reason they're not up much is because most investors are waiting for Taiwan Semiconductor to report tomorrow morning. And that is going to make or break things. And what I mean by that is this, is that essentially ASML missed their bookings numbers by 50%. 50% less bookings than Wall Street had expected. And so the question is was that their other portion of the business? That was the narrative, right? The narrative spin was, oh, ASML missed because of all the other things besides AI chips and chip surrounding stuff. Tomorrow, Taiwan Semi will let us know the truth, because if you have 2 weak reports in a row, then you can't say, oh, it's not the chips, the AI side of things. It's specifically AI. So we're going to watch that really closely, and I think that's why the markets were neutral to positive today. You had buy the dippers coming in, but not a lot of big money wanting to take long positions without seeing what those numbers are from Taiwan Semi. Follow me over here, guys. Let's go over the action in the markets today. So you can see that the Dow Jones Industrial Average actually had a pretty nice day, but remember, that's more defensive names, right? So defensive names here, Walmart was up today. You had other names like that doing very well. Here's where it was a little weaker, right? The S&P was up about 0.4%, or is up about 26 points, while the NASDAQ is only eking out a small gain of 0.25% after losing 1% yesterday. So again, they're coming back a little bit. Buy the dip is very common these days because it works, or has worked. Eventually it won't, but right now it has worked. But nonetheless, we're not seeing some major upside there, like a big reversal, until we get that Taiwan Semi report tomorrow morning. Oil continues to go down, nearing $70 a barrel, down 50 cents on the day. Gold is trading up again today, up about $12, right around that key level. And then Bitcoin today is still kind of hovering just underneath that key 68,000 marker. And that's the big one, folks. I've talked to you. We'll go over that chart in a minute. But on Bitcoin, 68,000 is make or break for that stock, or I should say that cryptocurrency. Taking a look at the heat map here, you can see, again, Apple down a little bit, but NVIDIA today strong. Now, you might say, well, why is NVIDIA going up 3% on the day when the chip sector is so waiting very cautiously for the Taiwan Semiconductor report tomorrow? And the answer is this. This is best of breed right here. So even though other semiconductors are struggling or flat today, like Taiwan Semi's only flat on the day, people are still willing to buy the dip on NVIDIA because that is the best player out there. They're willing to go into that one saying, you know what, this one's going to be a rock star regardless of what the rest of the sectors are doing. Financials are green. We have technology services, mostly red over here, led by Microsoft, about 1% down. Also, Meta's under pressure. And I want to show you that chart. It's actually a really fascinating chart. All right, let's get back to the computer here and take a look at a couple of the key charts out there. So if we go down here and we bring up our charts, this is your intraday spiders, right? So here's where we open the day right over here. Check that right here. This was your 9:30 open. You could see it was basically flat. And then look at the slow grind all the way today, just slow grind, neutral to higher into the end of the day. That's, again, the slow buying of retail investors, but no major money committing to the chart. Now, I promised you to look at Taiwan Semi, right? So Taiwan Semi, and let's go to the big board and analyze this. So the first thing that I have annotated on the chart is this. All right, so this is a double top right here. Double top right there, and right here. So you hit your double top. Now, historically, if you look at probability-wise, when you have a chart like this and it goes up and then has a correction and goes back up, generally that double top is significant resistance, and generally probability favors some sort of check back. What you don't know, though, is it's already checked back a little bit like this. Is that the check back, or is it going to be more? Now, probability-wise does favor a little bit of a bigger pullback, but again, this is one of those where it's the AI chip sector. Is it going to defy gravity? Is it going to defy reality and probability? If you just look at 100 of these charts, generally your double top pullback is a little bit bigger, probably by about 70% of the time. So 7 out of 10 times, you should get a bigger pullback. Let's watch tomorrow, and in the game plan, I'll go over it, what ends up happening with Taiwan Semiconductor. Okay, and again, folks, that's the big one. Now, let's talk a little bit about Meta here. The reason why Meta is so intriguing to me, if we come back to the big board and take a look, is because of the weak nature of it. If you look at the S&P 500, the S&P 500's continued to climb up and make higher highs until basically yesterday. Yesterday we had a little dump, the NASDAQ dumped out as well. But if you look here, the high on Meta was put in right here, and this is what we call a reversal candle. You have a big green followed by a big red reversing that entire move. That's a bearish sign. If you look at the following days, while the S&P was going like this and the NASDAQ was going like this, Meta was trading sideways. It was actually making bullish consolidation, all right? But there's a caveat. Bullish consolidation with a reversal candle is not necessarily good. In addition, this is a long-term trend line, and look at what's happened here. You basically were consolidating in a bullish pattern, but now it's broken back below that key level. One of the things that I've learned in all of my years of technical analysis and trading is that when you have a bullish pattern and the probabilities favor that move up, right? If it fails, it's not just, it just doesn't fail by a small amount. What I mean by that is generally failed bullish patterns or failed bearish patterns get major moves in the opposite direction. So this is very intriguing to see this price action, because what it does is it makes me think if there is big institutional money that's unloading ahead of Meta's earnings in just a couple weeks. And again, we'll watch this very closely. Does it stay below this line? Does it continue down a little bit like this going into earnings while you have retail money still coming in and still buying the overall indices, which obviously Meta gets a chunk of that since it's $1 trillion+ stock. So very interesting there. All right, now we're going to talk about a real trade, guys, real trading action. And this is really important, folks. So one of the topics that I wanted to cover today is that real traders take real losses, right? No one's perfect. I certainly am not. And I want to discuss one of those today. So let's go over to the big board. So this morning in the game plan, I was so positive. I was looking at the chart. I'm like, man, UAL should have a pullback. It should. It was opening up about $1 on the day. I was like, man, oh man, the chart was up, what, 80, 75, 80% just from August lows in 2.5 months. I mean, that's ridiculous. It had resistance up here and everything. And you know what happened? It still went up. And that's the nature of it, is that it doesn't matter how many years you've traded. Doesn't matter how good you are. There's always going to be a trade that it doesn't work out. And that's what probabilities tell you, right? So the best traders, the Hall of Fame traders, are going to be at best around 80% on swing trades. All right, 80% success rate. What does that mean? Well, it means that 20% of the time you're going to get it wrong. That's just the nature of it. And by the way, that's Hall of Fame numbers. Usually the average person's 50-50. Good traders are 70-30, 65-20, 35, somewhere in that vicinity. But the point being is that this is a great example where it just shows you that it's a probability game. So you might have 8 winners in a row that tell you, yeah, this was a great trade, I made money on it, and then there's still one that's going to come up, and the markets love to do this. They love to remind you who is boss. So you could get all cocky, and by the way, it's one of the reasons people always comment and say, oh man, you know, you're so down to earth, even though you're a trader, you've been a trader for 25 years, you made a lot of money. The reason I'm down to earth is because the markets still smack me around. They still smack me. All right, it's the nature of the beast. You can't be like, you know, like a lot of these influencers out there, and I don't mean to get off topic, but a lot of these influencers are on like X or on these social media, they come across like they're so cocky, all this. It's because they're not real traders. They're not real traders, folks. Real traders, they get hammered sometimes. And I got hammered on this one today. There's no doubt about it. Now, I still think it's a great short because it's it's now 95% in a straight line. It'll come back in. But the market has a way of humbling the best of us. And if we remember that, we keep position sizes. And this is my point of bringing this up, is that position size is so, so important. You got to remember position size. If you overload the boat, when the market does one of these things, it wrecks you. If you keep position size reasonable, then you're able to survive and go on to the next period where you have another 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 winners in a row and you make more money, right? And you're net positive even after taking a decent sized loss. Very, very important to understand. All right, let's go over a couple of the charts there. Now my sermon is done for the day. Let's take a look at Bitcoin here as we get in towards the end of the day. And if we look at Bitcoin here, guys, Bitcoin continues to hover just underneath 68,000. So it did make a slightly higher high today, piercing 68, pulling back just a little bit below. This still is resistance until proven otherwise. And by the way, another great example of this is that as a trader, remember what we talk about. You can't have preconceived notions. Resistance is resistance until it breaks and confirms, just like support is support. So many of us that have HODL positions in Bitcoin might be like, oh, it's going to break out. Well, it might, and maybe eventually it probably does, but you don't know if this is it, and you have to respect that resistance. Traders that go over it and say, oh, you know what, it's going to break out, well, they're jumping the gun, and that's where you get yourself in trouble. Make it break before you jump to conclusions. All right, next chart let's look at is gold here. Gold just holding steady on the day, trading just above this trend line here. Again, there's still resistance right in this zone, not much going on there. And silver, same thing. Silver's really not doing a whole lot. I still favor a pullback on silver here, although, again, it's been grinding up just a little bit recently. Still underperforming gold, though, as, again, gold's made a new, or basically back to these highs, while silver has still struggled. Oil today, we talked about this. This was under pressure, continues to sell off just a little bit. And natural gas. Natural gas continuing its downward momentum. Beautiful pullback here continuing. Again, I'm looking to potentially buy here if it gets down here. And like I've said to you guys, I'll be looking to short up there. All right, so just to summarize, we know what we're watching, right? If you're a trader, if you're an investor, by the way, investors, traders, you still have to pay attention to the same things. Tomorrow morning, Taiwan Semi supposed to come out around 2 in the morning because it's an overseas company. Those earnings will impact the futures. In fact, you won't even have to look at the earnings on Taiwan Semi. Just look at the futures at like 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning. If they're down sharply, you can bet Taiwan Semi was negative, right? It was not a good earnings report. If they're up nicely, it was probably a good report. The other thing to watch, jobless claims. Last week, jobless claims, people filing for unemployment jumped substantially to 258,000. Was that an outlier? Or was it the new norm? That's what that number will tell us tomorrow, which will also impact the market. All right, guys, so you're ready to go tomorrow. Let's go into tomorrow. Let's trade the charts. Let's watch for those probability setups. Let's rock and roll. Have a good one. Take care.